So SEO isn't just about Google anymore. If you want to survive and thrive in 2025 and beyond, you need to adopt an omnipresent SEO strategy. I'm Nathan Gotch, the founder of Gotch SEO Academy and Rankability, and the author of the SEO Entrepreneur. So my goal is to show you how to stay ahead of the competition by mastering the next generation of SEO. So whether you're an agency owner or entrepreneur, the stakes have never been higher. So let's just dive into this. First, I have to do a little bit of a history lesson, and this will not be boring, it'll be fast. So SEO 1.0, all right, this was, I call this the good old days. Okay, this is when things were a lot more simple. All right, we would just find a keyword that we wanted to rank for. All right, then we would write some copy for it. Okay, now back in my day, when doing SEO, you had to actually write it with your fingers, right? You had to actually like put your fingers on the keyboard and you had to actually type away and actually do it. But now, obviously ChatGPT's changed the game on that. We'll talk more about that. But the point is we would find a keyword and we would need to write copy. Okay, that's what we would do around that keyword. We build it around that keyword. Then we would publish it on our website. Simple concept, right? Put it on the website. Then once our website is crawlable and indexable, Google will come to the website, it will crawl that content, and then it will give us an opportunity to actually use ranking factors to determine if that page should, where its position should occur inside of Google's search engine, okay? And then if we rank, depending on where we rank, we're gonna see a certain amount of CTR, click-through rate. And then finally, a portion of those searchers will come to our website as traffic. That's SEO 1.0. That's the way it used to work. That was cool, worked really well. It was really, very simple process. That is not what we're dealing with anymore. Okay. There's a lot more that's going on. There's a lot of more moving parts. And I'm not telling you this to scare you. It's actually, there is a lot of good that's coming out of this. But just keep in mind, like, we can't view SEO as this anymore. There's much more going on. And we can't just view SEO as only Google. Okay. We got to view SEO much broader. So now I want to show you what I'm calling SEO 1.5, which actually in some scenarios is how it is kind of right now for Google specifically. Now, still the same thing, keywords and content, still the same stuff. Okay. But there's a few new layers going on here because Google isn't just looking at our website to determine what should rank in their search engine, right? Because before it was just websites and pages, and that's what appeared in Google, right? That was it, okay? And specifically like your website. But now Google's going to be looking at a lot of other stuff. They're going to be looking at videos. They're going to look at social media posts. They're going to be taking from your post, Google business profile for local queries. They're going to be using Reddit and Quora and forums. They're going to be using micro content and blogs. The list goes on and on. All kinds of things that Google's now ranking outside of just pages from websites. Okay, that's really important to understand. Google and the ranking factors, yeah, they're constantly changing, but for the most part, pretty much the same, right? Pretty much the same as far as SEO 1.5. Ranking factors do change a little bit, helpful content update, all this stuff. Yes, things do change, but at its core, the biggest ranking variable in Google is backlinks and website authority. Those two things have not changed basically at all. It's just continues to be one of the most important ranking variables. The only variable that's been introduced over the last, I would say 3 to 5 years that's clearly very influential are user signals, okay? And we could talk all day about ranking factors, but for now, these are this is the one area that's changed dramatically. These areas have not really changed. Now, the other part that's changed is what happens in the SERPs, okay? So before it was, 10 blue links, which is the traditional. Now we're dealing with all kinds of other stuff, right? These are all the different SERP features and there's more than this, but this is just a few of the biggest ones that you'll see most frequently, right? We've got local packs and we've got the AI overviews. And in some scenarios, we've got an AI overview and a featured snippet in the same spot. I don't think that's going to last. I think the I think the AI overviews will replace the featured snippet, but for now, there's this mess going on. There's a discussion section where it shows Reddit and Quora and all these other things. It shows even a little, and I'll be showing examples of this, but what people are saying, which is like, it might be like a short YouTube video from me talking about, I don't know, content optimization or something, and I'll show up in that little section. Okay. People also ask images, videos. You get the point. There's a lot of different areas on Google to rank, right? Used to be we would just rank in the 10 blue links. That was it. Now we need to try to occupy real estate in multiple areas in the SERPs. Okay. And there's a way to do this. All right. And the other part of the CTR and traffic, this is the part that's been majorly affected by what I'm calling SEO 1.5, because all of these distractions take away from CTR, right? Just naturally, if there's more going on and there's more options for people, they're going to click less. It's just a fact. Okay. So this is kind of what we're dealing with. We're going to see over time, every website will likely get less clicks just across the board. That will happen. It's inevitable. Okay. Just going to have to accept that will be the case. And the way that you can combat this with your clients is you need to be focusing more on an omnipresent type of strategy, right? Because if our only KPI is how many clicks we're getting from Google, that's going to be hard, really, really, really hard. So now let's talk about what I'm calling SEO 2.0, okay? So SEO 2.0, which you guys have maybe seen me talk about this already a couple times, but it needs to be reiterated, which is the most important factor right now in all of this actually are the traditional search engines, believe it or not. Now, getting actual CTR from the search engines is going to progressively probably go down over time, just naturally. That's just going to happen. This is kind of like email marketing. Okay. Email, you could be rich for the amount of times that people said email was dead, right? Email marketing's dead. Don't do it. It's worthless. That's all been proven to be wrong. And during all that time, because I've been doing digital marketing since 2013, been doing it. I've actually been doing it full time since 2013. So it's been over a decade, and I've been doing email marketing that entire time. And it still continues to do positive things for my business. So if I would have just listened to all the people in the headlines, I wouldn't have been making as much money in my business, right? So it's better to get your own proof and your own evidence and your own data to actually see if these concepts and theories are true, other than just listening to the clickbait headlines that are incentivized to drive clicks because that's the only way they make money, right? So you got to be really careful with that. That's a really dangerous game to play. You need to actually see if it's true. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because email is not dead. It's just not as good as it used to be, right? Because like you've probably heard, if you follow Gary Vee at all, he was very early on email marketing. And when he started, he said he had like 90% open rates. You don't get 90% open rates anymore. That just does not happen unless you have like a list of 10 people. You might be able to get 90 then. But as soon as your list reaches any decent size, you're going to start to see that it's going to drop very hard. So give or take with my email list, and I'm constantly pruning it, I'm probably around 45 to 50% in that range. Okay. So just keep that in mind. That's my open rate for an engaged list. That's not just like a list of people that I just like scraped and threw onto a list. Like these are people that actually signed up for a lead magnet and know who I am. And there's like a lot of stuff. And I'm still only at 45 to 50%. Right. But I'm willing to accept that because it's still a marketing channel among many other marketing channels. If email was my only marketing channel, I'd maybe be a little scared, right? But still, once again, as dead as quote unquote email marketing is, every time I send an email, I get nearly 50% of people to open it. And usually, I think in my last email, I got over 1,000 clicks on my links in the email. So Think about that. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. And that's for something that's dead. So just keep that in mind. Now, you just have to accept that over time, natural progression of these platforms is going to be less clicks and things that we're hoping to get. But as long as we're focusing on many other platforms, which is kind of SEO 2.0, you'll be fine. Okay. So the reason why this is most important, which is the traditional search engines, so Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, and Brave, which is kind of like a privacy-based search engine as well. But let's just say, like, we'll call it the big three, at least in the United States: Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo. So these search engines are critical that we get visibility on them, obviously because we get traffic from them. That's the most obvious point. But the other reason is because they actually inform the large language models, right? They train the large language models. So when someone runs a search on Search GPT, it's using the same ranking variables as DuckDuckGo and Bing, basically. Okay. And so you have to be there because it's literally pulling its sources from those search engines. So if you're not there, you're not going to be a source in the large language model. So all of these things are tied together. You have to be like, that's why I'm showing this one first, because visibility in the traditional search engines is the most important part of this whole process. We have to be there. Okay. Good news is the ranking factors across these are basically the same. Okay. Basically the same. Google uses much more complex algorithms for its organic results. But once again, links, user signals, making sure you're matching intent, you guys know all the stuff. Okay. All right. And this is the next progression of this is the large language models, right? Which there's no denying it. People are using these large language models like search engines. They are doing it. I'm doing it. I know Simon does it. Like, I know a lot of people who are doing it. It's inevitable. It is happening. So, but the good news, like I said, is it does function very similar to other search engines. So as long as we have visibility here, we should likely also get visibility in Search GPT and Perplexity and whatever other one there is, and there will be, right? So that's the good news. You don't need to be too concerned about it. In fact, I would keep an eye on your Google Analytics, because we've been seeing traffic coming from OpenAI and Perplexity. It's actually starting to see that now. So it's pretty cool. Obviously, it's no Google yet, but it's something that cannot be ignored, because I think ChatGPT, I think, is now in the top 10 most popular websites on the internet. Last time I checked, it was in the top 10 now, which may not seem like a big deal, but the fact that it did that in just a couple of years is crazy. That just means that there's a lot of people using it, a lot. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. So this is what we have to be doing. But just remember, the traditional search is the foundation for getting into the large language models. The other part of this too is the algorithms for the search component of these large language models. So like specifically Search GPT, they're using backlinks as a big factor. So once again, doing link building generally and building your brand and doing digital PR and all those things is going to help you perform not only in the large language models, but also obviously in traditional search. Okay. So these things, all the factors that you should be focusing on, you should continue to focus on those because they're going to benefit you. Okay. And then the social media search engines. This is the other big piece of this. A lot of these, like YouTube in particular, there's a lot of YouTube videos that pop up in Google search results. And I'll be showing you an example of this, but same with TikTok and some of these other ones, obviously Reddit and LinkedIn. So a lot of these platforms, like, we should be thinking about is like, all right, well, start here with Google, or how do I figure out my Google strategy, my general search strategy? And then how do I figure out my strategy on these other platforms, right? That are, of course, contextually relevant to the stuff that you're selling. Like, if I'm selling content optimization tool, I'm not going to go on Pinterest, right? My target market is not there, right? So just make sure it's specific to the thing that you're selling or that your clients are selling, but it's still critical. Pick a few of these and start to build a presence there. And I'll talk kind of what that looks like in a sec. And then e-commerce search engines. This is the last as far as priority, but if there's some relevance there, you should certainly try it, right? And this is like I've been testing doing Amazon because I have the book, obviously, and it's pretty cool how easy it is to do SEO there. It's like way easier than Google. Google is the hardest. I've tested many of these platforms as far as SEO and just creating content in general. I'm telling you, Google is hands down the hardest. It's like Google, probably YouTube second, and then everything else is honestly not that hard to learn. They're pretty simple to learn for the most part. Okay, so that's SEO 2.0. And the only thing that's really going to change here is platforms coming in and out. But the general idea here, I don't see it changing very much coming up here soon. Okay. So with all of that said, now that I've scared everyone to death over all of the changes, this comes down to a very simple idea, which is we just need to focus on what we can actually control. There's a lot of stuff out here that we can't control. I can't control nearly any of this, right? I can't control Facebook and Instagram, their algorithms. I can't control what Google's going to do. I can't control what new large language models are going to come and which ones don't. It's just a waste of time. It really is. It doesn't make a difference. There's just accept that there will be change. That is going to happen. And you just need to roll with the punches. But there are certain things that we can specifically control when it comes to SEO. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video. So one of the biggest ranking factors in Google and LLMs like ChatGPT are backlinks from authoritative websites. And that's when a service like Search Intelligence comes in. They handle all of the grunt work of digital PR and land you powerful backlinks that the algorithms love. Now, yes, it is a decent investment, but it also saves you a massive amount of time and effort because A, you don't have to spend thousands of hours mastering the art and science of digital PR, and B, you don't have to suffer from opportunity costs because you can continue focusing on your core strengths in your business. So I'll have a link below the video where you can check them out. Number one, content. Simple as that. This isn't just applicable to SEO like in Google, it's applicable to any brand that we're working on. We can always control content. We can actually create things and put it into the marketplace. That's something we actually have control over. We can also control experience. This is on our site itself, like actually influencing the people that are there, right? Making sure that their experience is solid. And we know there's so many variables that can influence this: page loading speed, the general design of the site, how easy it is to consume the content, the quality of the copywriting to keep people engaged. There's a lot of stuff that influences that, but we can directly influence and modify this, and we can do it based on data by using tools like Mouseful or Hotjar. We can see actually how users are engaging on our pages. Now, you can't really influence it as much on other platforms, but at least on our website, we can, okay? And then number three is promotion. We have full control over this. We can promote our content however we want. Right? We can do outreach, we can do paid ads, we can do, the list goes on and on. We can create micro content. There's just so much we can do. These are things we can actually control. We need to be doing it. And then the fourth one, which I'm saying is in kind of control, which is reviews, right? We can control in the way that we can actually request reviews. We can try different strategies to collect reviews. Those are things we can't control. We can control the outputs there, but we literally cannot control someone leaving a review. Like, I can't force them to leave a review. I can set a lot of systems up that increase my odds of success, but we're certainly not going to be able to force anyone to do that for us. That's kind of it's in the kind of category. But the point is, these are the things we can actually control. And this is where our time and our effort and our attention should be spent. Don't worry about so many of these other things that are constantly changing. You do need to make adjustments. Obviously, don't put your head in the sand, but you want to be in the middle and focus on execution. The people that focus on execution are the ones that win. It is just a fact. The people that are either fear-mongering or they're way too optimistic, you don't want to be on either of those ends. You want to be right in the middle putting your head down, doing the work, and reaping the benefits of all these people that are just sitting on their hands. It's just a fact. People are sitting on their hands. They're sitting on all this beautiful technology that they could take advantage of, and they're too afraid. It's like they're paralyzed by all the change that they're not actually doing anything. Don't do that. That's not good. Okay, so now let's talk about how to actually execute this. Of course, I'll use references to my favorite shows and movies. So, but the first thing here is most important. Like out of all this stuff, which can seem very intimidating, okay? Very intimidating. You have to get really, really focused. And the way we get focused is when we're going to build out a strategy, we need to specifically pick what is the main thing that we're selling. So whether it's our own business or whether it's our client's business, figure out what's that main thing that makes us the most money. What's that kind of core thing that we're doing? Okay. So I'll just use a small example. For rankability, we sell content optimization software. Very simple. Okay. My entire strategy needs to be built around fortifying and building authority around that one idea. That's it. That is my number one job. So I'm going to do that across multiple platforms. But first, identify what's that money-making topic, money-making thing that either your business or your client's business needs to focus on. Okay, because that's the center of it all. Okay. So as I mentioned here, content optimization tools. It's actually even more specific. We're actually content optimization tools for agencies. Okay. So even more specific, but for this example, I'll just show you a little bit broader. Okay. So figure out what that thing is that's going to be in the middle that you're going to build your whole strategy around. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start to layer on the things like I mentioned. So first, focus on your owned assets. These are the things that are actually under your control. Your website is like the hub for your entire strategy. So you want to build your whole strategy around developing content on your website. Makes perfect sense. Nothing new here. This is what we should have already been doing. But just to reemphasize, this should be the focus initially. Get this squared away. Small example is, I'm kind of in a unique situation because with rankability, I've got my old, aged, and authoritative website, gotchaseo.com, and I've got a new, not authoritative site in rankability.com, right? So going back and forth trying to figure out, well, should we publish this content on the news side or publish it on gotchaseo.com? And of course, we publish it all on gotchaseo.com because it has way more trust, way more authority, and I know stuff's going to rank on it a lot better. So looking at your owned assets and doing that. And so what we're doing is we're starting to hit the different stages of the funnel and the different stages of customer awareness that I've talked about before. And you're going through these different stages, and you really want to focus more at the bottom of the funnel and then work your way up. So for example, for us, like if you look up, rankability versus ClearScope or rankability versus insert whatever other competitor phrase, you won't be surprised by this, but you're going to see Gotcha SEO ranking. Okay. This is all on purpose because I'm building out these clusters to attack these very, very specific keywords to make sure that I'm hitting every nook and cranny of the content optimization tool market. Okay. So I'll show you a quick example of this because I track everything. So give me 1 second here. Open this up because it's good to think in terms of clusters, because this is like really, really important is when, like, instead of just kind of like, this kind of like just spraying approach, call it pay and spray, but spray and pray is what it is specifically. But if you look at this is a much more deliberate approach. Okay. Being very, very deliberate about what we're doing, not just being random and chaotic. And so what I do, and by the way, I'm not immune to making mistakes. So, but the way that I can see when I'm making mistakes is based on the organization of this. So if I sort this by cluster, I can see where my deficits are, right? So like, let's say I wanted to improve for Boston SEO. Well, I would see like, okay, well, what other assets do I have to support that, right? And come to find out, not a whole lot. So I don't really deserve to be ranking anyway. But what I do want to look at is content optimization tools as a cluster. right? And so this started as one simple seed. The first seed that I created was this one, right? Which is going back to what I'm talking about, is like create that mother asset that attacks that main keyword you really want to go after. So for me, makes perfect sense. SEO content optimization tools. I'm going to go hard on this. I actually wrote it. I put in the time, all that good stuff. Okay. Because I knew this would be that pillar that I need to build support around. Then from there, starting to attack all of these other supporting ideas. Naturally looking at the competitors, because in SaaS, that's one of the best strategies you can use. So I'm building out all of these supporting assets to ultimately build support around this general topic of content optimization and content optimization tools, right? And I'm just going to keep building and building and building to the point where basically I've punched Google in the face a million times, and it can no longer deny that I am the authority on content optimization tools. I need to make it so clear that there's no other possibility, right? And that's how you have to do it. Don't leave a cluster. You're working on this cluster. Don't leave it until it's clear as day that Google has established you as the authority on that topic, right? And I'm starting to see some signals of this. Like every time we publish a new asset, like we get like instant rankings, basically, right? So like if you look up, I don't know any of these, you look up like rank IQ alternatives. And we published it on the 31st. Let's just, for fun, let's just see how we're doing. This was what, a couple days ago. Okay. And this is not it's not a competitive keyword really, but just to show you, like 2 days ago, like I'm looking at this because I'm saying, okay, if we're getting this traction this early, then it's a signal that Google's starting to kind of put us into a bucket. And I want to be put into that bucket, because if the more I'm put into that bucket, the more visibility I'm going to get for the core thing that we're selling, right? So it's the same thing that you want to do with this. We want to figure out what's that core thing that we're selling, and we want to be crazy about building topic support. Crazy. Like I will really mean it. Like you should really be thinking about, how do we cover this topic to the fullest extent? Okay. So going back to this, focus on your main website. And there's so much work to do there that, you're going to spend most of your time just doing that until you've tapped everything out. And once you've tapped everything, and keep in mind, this is just for one topic. You really need to do this for all of the topics, which the reason why this is important to understand is because we want to go and like a mile deep on these topics, not just like scratching the surface. And once you realize how deep you can actually go on one specific topic, you realize there's just a lot of work to do, a ton. Because you think about it, let's say you're an absolute beast. You get through every single topic that exists around this one main one, and you publish everything on your website. Well, the next logical step is actually not to go on any other platforms. It's actually to think about considering building some micro websites. And the reason for that is because now we want to think about, okay, we're crushing it. Our website's crushing it for all these important keywords. Okay, that's great. We're doing a good job. But what if we could rank more than once for these keywords? What would happen then, right? So naturally, what would happen is you're going to get more CTR. You're going to occupy more real estate. You're going to get more clicks, and you're going to be doing much better. Okay. So this is that I call this more of an advanced strategy. I wouldn't deploy this right away, and I'd be pretty deliberate with it. But you're going to see, once I feel like we've tapped it out, the next logical step is thinking either looking at our other owned assets that we can create content on. And once you tap those out, then considering like, okay, what are some micro websites we can build? So an example of a micro website would be bestcontentoptimizationtools.com. That would be an example of a micro website because it has one function. I'm going to show all the tools, and I'll probably create some dedicated posts specifically about content optimization tools, and I'll just repeat what I've already done again. So Brian, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify with you. You would definitely repeat, even though you had that cluster on your main site. This is just an additional site that you can internally link between the two of them, in a nonchalant way that brings authority to everybody in the chain around that specific
Correct.
topic. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and I would redo the content
Of
for each
course, not
keyword on that
exactly.
plot. Yeah. And I would also make sure that that entity lives on its own and would
Right.
not be
Understand.
associated, yeah, under the same registrar and hosting, and it would be its own entity. Yes, it would be certainly linking out, but the waters would be muddied because I'd also link out to my competitors. So
Right. Yeah.
you
And
wouldn't
also,
really know, right?
you would probably also have your name somewhere on that website. It wouldn't be like not branded Nathan Gotch. I mean, if
No.
Google really wanted to know, they'd know who did it. I mean, they're
Yeah, yeah.
not dumb, you know.
No, no. And I mean, if they wanted to manually dig through and try to do it, but technically, I'm not like breaking any rules. I'm just
No, no one said you were.
it's
I'm just
all
saying,
it's all
you know.
it's all fair game, right? It's all
Yeah.
fair game.
I mean, major companies do this all the time, right? They do this
Oh
all the
yeah,
time, and they don't even hide it. Like they don't even
no,
hide it, you know. So, you know,
yeah, and it's
I think it's
well,
smart.
and I was gonna say too, I've used this strategy in the past, but I actually really learned it from a client of mine that I had
Really?
because they did something really fascinating, which is they built out a whole media business basically just for informational content about Disney, Disney travel, Disney parks, whatever it is. This beautiful, basically informational website. And it was really just a strategy to drive leads to their travel agency. And I was
Right.
like, wow, that was smart. That was really smart. And so I kind of got that inspiration from them. But the thing is, it's easier to get links to an informational website than it is
Right.
to a company site.
Right.
So that's why, like, even me trying to decide, like, oh, do we do it on gotchaseo.com or rankability? I pick
Yeah.
gotchaseo.com because it feels more informational. It feels more
Yeah.
less bias, right?
Also, it's now a tier one direct link to your main site, right? Which a high authority, and people don't feel, people will be more likely to link to you. So it's
Yep.
almost like you get the two-tier link juice from your tier one site that you own both. I love the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
And
I
just thinking
absolutely love
about
it.
the not, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, and also one thing too is just thinking about what other assets you own. Like
Right.
sometimes I even forget that I own other domains. Like
Right.
I have nathangotch.com. Why can't I
Right.
publish stuff about content optimization tools there too?
You
There's
100%
nothing
can.
that can stop me, right?
Right.
I can do it anywhere. So what I think about though is like it is a matter of prioritization, right? And so
Yeah.
looking at your assets and which ones are the most powerful, the most aged, the most trusted, start there and then work your way down the ladder. So so yeah, that's the way that we can approach this is first going after our owned assets. I also would argue that under owned assets, I'd put email in here, but email doesn't directly influence
Sure.
search. It's more
Yeah.
of an indirect influence
Yeah.
because you can promote your content. So yeah,
Yeah. No, no, no. I really love that idea. And I've been toying with that idea as well to help some of my customer sites and also my sites, right? So it's just been I love that you're introducing it to the group because it makes me feel more confident in doing it. At first
yeah.
I was like,
Well,
I was worried about too many, you know, making a link web. And I was like, it doesn't make any sense because as long as you're delivering value on these topics based off of these items, I feel like it's fair game. But
yeah.
you know,
Well, and of course, there's always risk, right? Google may, I don't know, for whatever reason,
I mean,
may not like it,
yeah,
but at the same time, like if it's for a client, your client will literally love you if you rank in multiple properties on the first page for their most important keywords. You
of
will
course
never
they
lose that client
never,
ever.
never. It
So
also the funny discussion is if they ever even entertain that idea, it's like, oh, this site is technically mine.
yeah, right. Yeah, just threaten them. That's
Yeah,
good.
no, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
But it sometimes works. No, go ahead.
Yep.
What were you going to say?
Exactly. Yeah. So okay, well let me check Sam's question here. Let's see. Okay. When building out topic authority, many of the keywords in my experience don't have a lot of search traffic. but you still recommend building out these pages. How do we explain this to a client? Yeah, so it's tricky because sometimes you don't know if the idea has search traffic until it ranks. So this is a really difficult situation because sometimes you do have to use some intuition to go after a keyword like that. And that's why, like for me, going after I'm with rankability, I'm anticipating search volume in advance. So what I'm thinking about is like, okay, I'm going to have people that want to sign up for rankability, and I know that they're going to search for my competitors to see if they're better than us, right? Or what, like they're going to try to find a reason to not join or a reason to join. That's just what people do. So I was thinking like, okay, well, I need to be visible right now for these queries for when they eventually come. So the idea is like ranking for rankability versus X. I know right now if I do it, first of all, I'm going to rank really easily. Second of all, I'm going to be the most aged for that content because no one else has gone after it. And C, it's going to be hard to beat me, right? It's going to be much harder to beat me because now I'm the one that's already attacked that keyword right away. So I've got all the good signals going. So now what I'll do is over the course of 3 to 6 months, I can go into Google Search Console, look at that URL, and see the searches that are coming into that URL specifically, and I can confirm that that was a good idea or a bad idea. It's the same with what you're describing, like I said, I think you should use the 80-20 rule here. Like 80% of your ideas should have quantifiable demand before you publish, right? But the other 20%, I think you should take some bets. Definitely take some bets. And hopefully, some will work out. Probably it'll be like the 80-20 of that 20, which means like, maybe 20% of your bets will be really good payoff. The other 80% will be so or not good at all. But it's worth it. It's worth it. So, but the only way to really do it in this scenario is when you don't have that quantifiable demand from the traditional tools, you're just gonna have to create it and see what it does in Google Search Console. So yeah. All right. So this is part one, your owned assets. Get this squared away. You've got all the systems in this train to be able to do this. Just do this first, okay? Next one are what I call rented assets. So you'll see on the internet, or if you go into ChatGPT, you'll see traditional media is like earned, owned, and paid. And there's also like shared. I actually have a different definition. I call it rented assets because these are the assets where like it feels like they're yours, but they're not, right? Like my Google business profile is like, that's my profile, or like, oh, my Amazon listing, like that's my book. No, it's not. You are on rented land. All of these platforms, if you can be suspended or your account can get deleted at any time, it is rented land. It is rented land. So there's a lot of risk here on all these platforms. I mean, Amazon, if they wanted, they're like, hey, we flagged one of your reviews. We think your grandma left you a review, and they suspend our book. They could do that in seconds. They wouldn't lose a single ounce of sleep over me losing my book, right? They wouldn't. So it's rented land, okay? So just keep that in mind. But at the same time, it is still valuable land that we need to attack, okay? So I really think that, pick the ones that are most relevant to whatever the business is you're working on. I'd say probably 3 or so. Go after maybe 3 of the most important platforms in whatever industry you're attacking, and then just really, really learn how those platforms work. Okay. And I'll just give you a real quick synopsis of how these platforms work. It's actually really simple. And I have to kind of put them into buckets because each platform's a little bit different, but I'll tell you this. Okay. So YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Okay. All of those basically all work the same. Okay. Almost identical the way they work. The only difference is with YouTube and TikTok, it's much more video focused. So there's a little bit more, things that go on there, but essentially at a very high level, what happens is content is published on a platform. Okay. That content is then put into the algorithms. The algorithms use natural language processing to understand what it's actually about. Okay. On YouTube, for example, it will, when the video goes live, YouTube will pull the transcript from that video. It will also pull the metadata. So the title, the description, whatever else you can supply it, it will pull all that out. And then it uses NLP to understand what that video is actually about. Okay. And from there, then it will push that video out to a small group of people based on all kinds of variables. Could be personalization, could be the fact that they follow you, could be the fact that they engaged with something in the past, whatever it is. There's a reason for them pushing out to a particular small segment of the market on that platform. Then based on how users respond to it, then it gets pushed out further. Okay. That's basically how all of these work. Trust me, I was a major oversimplification of how this all works, but at a high level, that's kind of the process. So it's just important to remember though, that SEO comes first. That's the thing that's crazy about this. And that's why picking a topic is critical, because you have to pick a topic to feed into the algorithms, right? Most people go on social media, they post whatever, and no surprise, they don't do particularly well, right? And yeah, maybe if you're Kim Kardashian, you can get away with that. But if we're like building a real business here, we have to get really, really specific to train the algorithms about what we do. If you go and look at some of my profiles, like I've been on X, for example, and their algorithms have changed. First of all, they used to be Twitter, and now they've literally completely changed their branding. But like I've been on that platform for, I don't know, 10 years or something. That's like 10 years of training data about me talking about SEO. Think about that. That's like, I am in that box, and you want to be in a box. Actually, when it comes to these platforms, you want the platforms to know what you're about. It's really important, because if it knows what you're about, it knows what to expect, right? And it knows who to push it out. Plus, your audience will know what you're about, right? So it's really, really important. And so figuring out, and this goes back to what I talked about earlier, picking a topic, picking a keyword, building content around that, optimizing that content around that keyword, and then publishing it, and then repeating that. I'll show you a process what this looks like. But the point is, same thing on these platforms, okay? Content optimization via NLP and user signals, okay? That's it. And then lots of repetition. Okay, earned media. This is the other piece of the equation, especially on Google, because we can go on all of these platforms and publish content on these platforms to occupy more real estate on Google. Once again, okay, that's the goal. But also at the same time, all of this earned media, which is obviously, in other words, doing link building in some ways, but also doing marketing for your brand. All of this stuff will benefit you specifically for Google and the large language models, because we know both of those traditional search engines and large language models use backlinks and authority and other brand signals to determine who should show up, right? That's a big piece of this equation. So just doing marketing outside of these is really, really important. Outside of your owned and rented assets, you need to also be expanding out into these other platforms. Now, keep in mind, notice we're still focused on content optimization. So when you go and let's say you go and get interviewed on 10 podcasts, I would want to focus just on content optimization or SEO content, like specifically. Like that's going to be the focus of my interviews, because once again, I want the crawlers to see, oh, Nathan Gotch entity associated with content optimization, another entity. Those entities are together, right? Now I'm creating that association. So that means all of my associations will begin to be towards that, right? It's the same thing like Nathan Gotch SEO. Like those things are associated together. It's not like Nathan Gotch and I don't know, some other Rubik's Cube solver. Like that, those things are not connected. Like, although I can solve a Rubik's Cube, Those things are not they're not connected in the knowledge graph. Okay. You want to train the knowledge graph. And if you're seeing there's a trend here, all we're doing essentially in a kind of complex way is we're just training the algorithms. Train, train, train. Just keep training it over and over, just beating it over the head over and over a specific topic that we're trying to make money on. Okay. Simple as that. And then lastly, paid. You can certainly you can pay for advertising on search engines, large language models. I know Perplexity is starting to run some ads, and the other ones are inevitably going to do this as well. Social media influencers, e-commerce ads. This is a way to amplify your results, but that's why I showed it last, because there's a lot of work to do here. And I would recommend spending most of your time on this stuff, because these are the things that actually influence all the other platforms, right? Especially large language models. So this is the stuff that's going to have the biggest impact. This is when, like, if you've got budget to throw some fuel on the fire to accelerate your results, okay? You should try to do it all. All right. So going back to what I was talking about, the process is pretty simple. Pick a topic, create content around the topic, distribute that content, right? And actually go back one here on the content side. The content obviously needs to be contextually relevant to that platform. So if it's YouTube, you have basically two forms of content that are proven to work. Number one is long form, and the other is short, right? Micro content, 1 to 3 minutes. Those are proven to work, okay? On X, there's a variety of content types that work. There's shorter content, but there's also threads that work well on X. On LinkedIn, you have carousels and decks. Those also work. Like, there's a lot of different content types on each platform, but at the end of the day, it's just content, right? And then we're going to distribute on the platforms. Then we're going to promote, okay? Sometimes that's trying to promote it like internally within that platform, but it's more than likely promotion outside of the platform. So, like if I want more subscribers and more visibility on YouTube, I can pull a lot of different levers to drive internal visibility and traffic to my YouTube videos, like on the YouTube platform. But I can also just send an email to my list and promote my video, right? So that we could bring external traffic to that platform to grow that platform, okay? And then learn. Every time we create content, we should be learning from it. We should see what works, what doesn't work. That's why I wanted to mention the goal piece of this, making sure that we're on a quarterly basis. That's why we're putting our head down, we're doing the work. And then at the end of the quarter, you lift your head up and you say, whoa, with a lot of stuff just happened. Let me process all this and then kind of see what worked and what didn't work, right? That's what you want to do. And then repeat, right? Just repeat this process over and over. It's not super complicated. So people get too wrapped up in the details of this stuff. Okay. I'm telling you, sometimes when I publish something, very little thought. Like if I publish a post, sometimes it's like, hey, this looks pretty good, post. Because you know what? We don't know what's going to happen. When I post something, I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. I've got a hunch because I've published so many pieces of content. I have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't work, but I'm not always right. I publish something and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think it's going to do really well. And it just bombs, right? And I think about like, well, why did that bomb? Think about it. And I say, okay, well, next time I'm going to try an adjustment on that idea. I think the root idea is good, but maybe the execution was poor. So I'm going to try something new next. The way to do this is to remove all emotion from this. No emotion. You just publish, you see how it does, and you're just unemotional about it and just keep making adjustments. That's all there is. There's not this spotlight effect on us, right? People aren't monitoring our every move and every piece of content. No one's looking at my YouTube video. Oh, he only got 3,000 views on his last video. Like, no one cares. People only care about themselves. So get focused on your stuff and get really, really, really focused on it hard. And then, one kind of re-emphasize on this point, just feed the machines. Feed the machines. Focus on creating good stuff that users also like too, right? That's the key. And just to give you a brief idea, this is what, NLP, this is kind of how it works essentially. Okay. Very simply, you don't need to understand all this stuff, but essentially this is what's happening. When you when you pull your phone, if you do a voice search, it doesn't really understand what you're saying. Not really. It's going to take that audio file, it's going to transcribe that audio file, then it's going to use NLP to understand what you're actually saying, and then it's going to feed that back to you, right? So this is the root of the technology that's being used across every platform, not just a few, all of them, like literally all of them. YouTube, Google, Amazon, you name it. They're all using NLP. So it's very, very powerful technology. So very important. Okay, just a small couple examples of this. All right. So is SEO dead? I ran this test. This was in May. Once again, this is one of my hunches where I was like, I think this will probably work, but I'm going to test it. I knew that LinkedIn was way overweighted as far as Google caring about it. So I went and published an article on LinkedIn, which I could have easily published on my website, but I published on LinkedIn because I wanted to prove that tapping into website authority and doing a form of parasite SEO is incredibly effective. Okay. So once again, works really well because I'm in the AI overview. And I think I'm actually only ranking number like 6 or 7 in the traditional, but I'm ranking number 1 in the AI overview. So just to show you, the differences now, you can technically not be number 1 in traditional, but be number 1 in specifically the AI overview, which is kind of cool, to be totally honest. So keep that in mind. Another one here, going back to the content optimization tools, focus that I'm on right now. You're going to see me starting to do a lot of stuff related to this, but small example, publish a little short video on YouTube is only 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and immediately on the first page. In fact, in 3 weeks, it's beating this piece of content that's been live since September. Okay. And it did it, basically in no time at all with very little effort. I got on the first page with this compared to this, which required significantly more effort, significantly more time, and significantly more money to get to this point, right? And I'm still got a long way to climb. So just to show you the difference, this is why being on the other platforms is it's not just more effective in a lot of cases, it's actually way more profitable in a lot of scenarios. So, and we know that video sells way better than text does. Just a fact. This one here, another example, just published this 2 days ago. I'm on the first page for SEO techniques. I don't even know if I could ever rank for SEO techniques with my site because it's so competitive in the traditional organic results, but not when I'm on another platform. On another platform, I can do it much faster, right? So just once again, showing you an example of this. This took me from end to end, probably took me, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours maybe to create that video. So 4 to 6 hours of work to rank on the first page for a highly competitive keyword with basically no investment other than time, right? So you compare that to the alternative. For me to write a long form asset on this topic, I would have to do something that's some sort of dissertation that would take me probably 25 to 30 hours to finish end to end, right? But it wouldn't even be over then, because as soon as I publish, then I got to go invest several thousands of dollars into backlinks just to get it there, right? So when you're dealing with hyper competitive keywords, there's a much simpler path in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but definitely in a lot of cases. Amazon, another example, ranking on the Amazon search. It's like so easy compared to Google, like so easy. Like all I did in here was just write a very simple description, made sure that the parts of the keyword in the title, that was it. Nothing complicated. I didn't have to build backlinks. I didn't have to do some crazy stuff. Simple as that. And of course, get reviews and all the other good stuff. But the point is it works. This one I want to show you because this is an example of building, training the knowledge graph. Because my name is associated with agency related stuff. So when I publish anything related to agency, I tend to do very well, right? And this is an example, like I have multiple videos in the pack. I've obviously Gotcha SEO is ranking well for it as well. But the point is like when you train that knowledge graph and you really, really train it hard, it just benefits you so much across all these other platforms, including Google. So, and then this one here, just another example in YouTube search, same idea, right? Like training it multiple times. If I keep publishing content about the same couple of topics, I'm going to train the algorithms on those, on my authority associated with those topics. Okay. And lastly, couple simple ideas here. Complexity equals more expertise that's required. Okay. So if something is more complex, you need more expertise. More expertise equals bigger investment and reliance on you as an expert, right? So it's just naturally, if something is more difficult, it's going to require a bigger investment to make it happen, or to find, or to hire someone to do that work for you, right? Which brings to the most important part, which is, and I've talked about this concept before. I learned this from Dan Kennedy. This is my new way of saying it, which is, if you understand how to make businesses more money, you'll never go broke. Okay. This is all that we're doing here. If you understand how to help businesses get more customers in this new world, you're going to be just fine. And SEO to me is the biggest piece of this whole equation, because SEO is applicable to every platform that you're working on. It's not just like, you think about the process. Find topics that are related to the things that we sell, create content on those topics, and then make sure that users actually think that content is good. That's what we're doing, right? And then for Google, obviously the backlink element, but all the other platforms doesn't make much of a difference. Now, there is actually on YouTube, there is some possibility that getting referral traffic from other platforms back to YouTube may influence your video's performance. There's some possibility that does something, but for the most part, it's all pretty simple, just based on user signals on that platform.